Hi guys, how are you all today morning? Good morning. In my previous video, I had given you a case history pertaining to the five sense organs, five senses, and the five evil that make the life of a living entity identifying with the mind body complex, either successful or miserable. To vouch for my statement and that of Ashtavakra that true happiness is achieved only after eschewing these, I would give you another case history. This story pertains to two evil. First, illusion, and second, false ego. You will see how Nemesis strikes a living entity who thinks that he or she will never fail in life. Please listen to this case history. It is a story from Pakistan. There lived a very wealthy, noble, and good person who had one very arrogant wife and one wayward son. This nice person tried to discipline his wayward son, but to no avail because of incessant intervention from that arrogant and superiority complex ridden lady who always supported her son. This rich man had one sister who was not so well off and who was already a widow. This woman had a daughter. The rich man's son was not only rich, wealthy, and luxurious, leading a luxurious lifestyle, but he was also extremely handsome and good looking. Several women wanted to have friendship with him, whereas this girl from that poor lady was ordinary looking and not so affluent. However, the noble and wealthy man, the father, promised his sister that he would give his own son for marriage to this daughter. The arrogant wife of the wealthy man and this handsome boy scoffed at the idea. They sneered at the old widow and her daughter and said that she was in low league with him as far as marriage and beauty was concerned. The old man got very wild at his son. He kicked him out of the house. The arrogant wife was very wild at this, but she could not do anything in front of her husband. Out of shock, one day the husband died. This wayward son came back and began enjoying the luxury along with his arrogant mother in this palatial house. Soon he collected an army of sycophants and self-serving friends who tried incessantly to drag him into bad company and life. One day, the arrogant woman also died. Now, this guy was the sole master of his own destiny. However, Nemesis struck then. One day, this boy got into a fracas or brawl over some gambling debt with other cronies in which he was horribly injured in his leg. Doctors who treated him found that his leg had developed gangrene, and so they cut it off. They amputated the leg. More trouble was in store for this boy. Now, this rich, handsome fellow had lost one leg, and because the police raided their gambling den, he, along with others, were arrested and thrown into the prison. This guy was high and dry. He had to spend some couple of miserable years in the prison, and when he came out, he found that all the wealth that his father had bequeathed him till now had been squandered away by self-serving friends, relatives, and other people, and this fellow was left with nothing. He had lived a luxurious life in his childhood, and so he had never bothered to educate himself. He had no talent, no education, and no skills to get a reasonable employment. He ended up stealing and thieving and all those things and kept getting arrested and thrashed by the public and the police. Ultimately, because he had only one leg, the police asked him to start begging for his money and stop stealing, etc. This guy became a beggar, and he was given a post outside a supermarket to beg. There this fellow stood on his one leg, or sat on a stool and begged for alms. One day, a couple with two children came out of the supermarket. The man was very handsome and he was carrying some big, huge paper bags or plastic bags. The children were well dressed, very cute, and enjoying some ice cream or fruits. This handsome man came, stopped near this our hero with one leg, who was now no more good looking, was totally bearded with long hair and shabby clothes, and he looked not even a shadow of his old self. This handsome man took pity on our friend, and he caught his own wife, who was coming from behind. Listen, I am carrying all your shopping bags with my both hands, and so I cannot take my purse from my pocket. Kindly take it out and give 5 rupees to this poor beggar who cannot work or who is probably hungry and wants alms. This lady came there, took the purse and took 5 rupees and gave it to this beggar, saying, "Okay, guy, please take." At that time, the beggar saw the face of that woman. She was very beautiful and healthy looking. She had a radiant glow on her face. And he was the same woman who this ugly beggar had once scoffed for lacking the good looks to marry him. She was his own aunt's daughter, the widowed aunt's daughter, who once felt very miserable when this fellow laughed at her face and her plain looks. This story was written by someone who this beggar recited about, and it was published in a magazine called Satyakatha. The beggar said, "On that day when this woman gave me my 5 rupees, I was the happiest man in the world. I was glad that Nemesis had dealt its final blow on me. Once I had scoffed at her, and today she was giving me 5 rupees to eat. That was destiny. What comes back or what goes out comes back to you. What you do or say comes back to you 50 times more powerful in its force. There is nothing that you do and does not have a nemesis or a result. Whatever you do has a result which will come to you sooner or later. Nobody can escape Nemesis, and nobody can escape God. Instead of identifying with your mind-body complex, identify with yourself and keep thinking about God so that you do not do any harm. True happiness lies in thinking about God, meditating in the self, and seeking self realization. Till we meet in my next video, it is good morning from TSV Raghavan.